She asked how. By the end of this video, I'm going to give you a glimpse of what it takes to make homeschool fun, and I'm going to give you an idea of how you can get more information. My name is Becky with A Better Way to Homeschool, and I've been spending a lot of time on the phone over the last couple weeks chatting with homeschoolers from all three stages of homeschool. From the beginning stage, where their kids are barely reading or just beginning to read and understand their numbers, to the fun and flourishing stage, my favorite stage, where kids have already learned that foundation that they need in order to read, and then you dive into the fun stuff. And then the third stage of actually launching into life, where kids have a targeted goal towards a career or their future, and then you map their education and experiences around that life goal. And I was on the phone with this mom, and she was totally confused at first. She's like, okay, none of this sounds like it would be a good fit for me. And then we talked more, and she's like, wait a second. This actually makes a lot of sense. This idea of you don't need curriculum for your kids to thrive, and the idea that you're wrapping hands-on projects and you're exploring and you're going places and you're doing all the fun stuff. And then she kind of leaned forward. She's like, but how? How do you make this happen? How do you lose the chains of curriculum and grade levels and learning benchmarks that everybody's always talking about, and then relax into fun homeschool? And I said, that's an excellent question. And she had the added challenge that some of us do, in that she's taught public school before. She's taught in a classroom before. So in her mind, when she thinks school, she thinks scope and sequence, she thinks curriculum, she thinks lesson plans, learning objectives, and assessments, right? And so as a homeschooler, when you're stepping into this new life of embracing learning, and you realize, wait, scope and sequence is not the same thing when you're living your life with your kids, and you don't test them the same way that you would inside a traditional classroom. She's like, Becky, how do you do this? Because this sounds so great and everything that you're doing makes so much sense, but I just can't wrap my head around it. And so she shared an idea with me of something that she wants to do with her children this year. And I said, well, let me run a quick this is how I would approach it, or how I would plan out something like this, so that you can see what it means to homeschool your kids and to make it fun. So she gave me this heart idea that she really wants to focus with her kids on a Bible study on the armor of God. Now I'm going to go through this, and this applies no matter what you put in the middle. It could be spiders, it could be engineering, it could be auto mechanics, it can be how to make pizza. The example that I went through with her, and I know my board is backwards, but that's okay. The words are the most important. Listen to how this feels as I explain this to you. So you put what it is that you want to know, what you want your kids to know, in the middle. And then you remember that it's, at the time of this video, 2023. So absolutely anything that your kids are curious about or they want to know, they simply pick up their smartphone and can find it out in 30 seconds flat. So the question is not what your kids are learning, but how they're learning. And so you want to delight the learning process and ignite that curiosity and spark their interest, and then lasso them and hook them like a big giant fish. So starting with the armor of God, I told her, pull a tool out of your teacher's toolkit and do a what do you know, what do you want to know activity with your kids. And that's where you take a big whiteboard. I have had a whiteboard since the beginning of homeschool, because I thought this is how you educate your kids. Stand at a whiteboard and talk. But anyway, I use the whiteboard for brainstorming. So you take that topic and you say, what do you already know about this topic? Because I don't want you to get bored. I don't want us to look at stuff you already know. And then you fill up the board, you fill up the paper with what they already know. And then you go into, well, what do you want to know? And this right here, Mama, Papa, whoever's in charge of homeschooling, this is where the gold lies. You get your kids to fill up the board, or you write it down, fill up the paper with at least 25 things that they want to know about that topic. This is where you everybody in the house enters in. I would say something like, wow, I'm curious, using this armor of God, I'm curious where all the mentions of the armor of God are in scripture, and which pieces and parts of armor are actually listed. Do they talk about things like battering rams or tanks, or is it limited to things like shields and belts and bucklers and those types of things? So I would write that down. I wonder what's mentioned. And then I would ask the kids, are there any, like, are you interested in drawing these things? Like, which parts and pieces would you like to do some kind of drawing learning about? And we'd go through, and I'd end up with a board filled with what the kids want to learn. And then we'd take a break, and we'd go for a walk, and we'd eat a snack, and we would be done for the day. The next day we'd come back and we'd use that list, and I'd have every single one of the kids choose their top 2 to 3 things, depending on how many kids you have. And what you're looking at is gold, because your kids have told you what they want to know, and now you get to wrap it in fun. So taking that example of the armor of God, it would start with reading. It always starts with books. There are picture books, stories, and writings about any topic that you can think of. So in this case, it would start with the Bible, and then you'd use that as memory work or copy work or mentor sentences. You would use that as a basis for your creative writing, your personal writing, etc. I would find drawing tutorials on how to draw a soldier, how to draw a helmet, how to draw a shield. I'd actually look for things like family crests and create a family crest, and we'd make a shield out of cardboard. Everything that I'm sharing with you here took me 5 minutes to brain dump, because I'm a professional brainstormer, and that's my secret power with homeschoolers, is helping them not only understand that this can be a fun process, but I actually have an almost endless supply of creative ideas, because I've been doing this for 25 years and with tons of homeschoolers. So we'd get a piece of butcher paper, and we would trace everybody's body one at a time. And over the course of this lesson, this unit, this study, we would start by drawing everybody's body, and the kids would do their face and their hair. And then as we study each of the pieces of armor, we would add that to the butcher paper. We would learn about types of weapons, the history of weapons, or the history of the battles within the Bible, and maybe create a timeline of events. We do possibly some kind of watercolor or sculpture or Lego or Play-Doh or some kind of tangible art product using something that the kids aren't 100% familiar with. I'd look for music, and yes, there's almost a song for anything that you can think of. And then we do a deep dive into why. Why is this important? The idea of leaning into what it is your kids love and then wrapping it with academics is a foreign concept to many homeschoolers, especially if you've ever taught in a classroom, whether you're a public school teacher, a private teacher, or even a Sunday school teacher. We're so programmed to think, what curriculum are we going to use, and what are our learning objectives? And those are good things. You don't necessarily need to toss curriculum, but curriculum is not where it's at. Curriculum is kind of like this joker with chains that binds you into thinking, well, what's the checklist? What kinds of things do I need to talk with my kids, and how do I prove that they've learned what they learned? And it can create this stress and anxiety and burden, and then you're looking at your kids and you're watching the joy just drain out of their face. Versus this type of learning, this type of all in, it's slower, which means you have more opportunities for snacks and hugs and picture books and exploration. It's slower, meaning that the learning and the ideas and the things that your kids are going to learn are going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into their soul. This type of learning that I just went through could be minimally a month-long project. It could be a 3-month project or a lifelong project if this is something that you were really passionate about. And if it were something that I was doing with my children, I'd probably spend 3 to 6 months on something like this. But I would have decided with the kids, once I had this all mapped out, or brainstormed out, we would pick a project. We're going to study this, I would say, for the next 2 to 6 months. At the end of that time, we need to be able to share this amazing discovery, all of this knowledge with the world. How do you want to do that? Do you want to do a PowerPoint presentation? Do you want to stand in front of the television and do a final project? Do you want to have, what's it called, like an art gallery type display, where everybody gets dressed up and you have stations around the house with a display of something with a little snack and tidbit, and then you stand and you explain your project to people? Do you want to create a biblical style feast where you create Bible foods and invite people over? You create the project, or you pick the project together. You send the kids outside to play, or to go on a walk, or to watch a movie or something. You take a couple days and you map this out and you reverse plan it. Starting from the project, we're going to need time to practice. In order to practice, we actually need to create the project. In order to create the project, we need to do drafts and revisions. In order to do that, we need to do research. In order to do that, we need to go to the library and get books and videos and talk to experts. Okay. You don't need to know how to do this right out of the bat. You need a guide. You need somebody that's done this a bazillion times. There are a bunch of coaches out there. This is my specialty. I love doing this with homeschoolers, and I love doing this with our homeschooling Olympians. And so I'm going to encourage you, if this type of teaching, like me, if you close your eyes and you think homeschool, you think projects, you think deep learning, you think exploring things from different directions with your kids at your side, everybody excited. If that's what you think when you're homeschooling, that's what you want your homeschool to be, but you don't quite know how to do it, I'm going to encourage you to visit abetterwaytohomeschool.com and to click on the 3 stages of homeschool or the homeschooling Olympians and get started taking your first step toward being able to do this type of teaching on your own. I promise you, it's 100% guaranteed. This type of teaching captivates your kids. It makes their eyes not just twinkle, but sparkle with excitement. It changes their frowns and turns it to smiles and laughter and joy, because they are all in. They were part of the brainstorming. You're not filling them with things that they already know. And you're finding ways to touch this topic by touching math and science and history and writing and art and music and food and community. And it is magic. It's what my husband and I did for the past 25 years. It's why all of our kids are amazing learners, because they're interested and curious, and they know that if they really want to know something, they need to touch it from all these different angles. And they have taken the slower road to practice their crafts, to practice what it is they're doing. And then they've been trained and mentored how to stand up and deliver what they've learned in front of others. And so when you see them as adults, you're going to shake your head and you're going to say, I can't teach my kids how to do that. It's like, there's no way. I'm not a writer. I'm not an artist. I'm not a musician. I'm not a public speaker. Fill in the I'm not. And yet I can teach you how to do this, because it is a learned skill that takes time, and you have plenty of time. If your kids are 14, 15 or under, you have time to embrace this type of learning and just rock homeschool. So anyway, that was my thought. How do you do this? You do it with a guide, or 100% you could do it this way. Hide all of your curriculum, anything that looks like school, for a minimum of 2 months. Do nothing academic. Nothing academic. And sit back and observe your kids and observe your family and take notes about the things that what they love, what they don't love, the things that make them excited, the things that make them bored. And then think about, okay, what are the different things? How, if I was going to do a thing on butterflies, what would I do? And just think about it. Don't talk about it. Don't get materials, but think through the lens of art, music, food, movement, science, history, writing, mathematics. Is there a way that you can connect to those things? So you can do this on your own. It is slower. I had a guide. She taught me how to do this, and then it just made it my life mission to pass this on to others, because it's freeing and it's a little intimidating. Okay, no, it's a lot intimidating if you have a curriculum mindset. So it's a lot intimidating. So you really need somebody that can tell you, hey, all of my kids made it all the way through. And not only did they love learning, not only did they laugh, but they learned a few things and they're rocking life. So anyway, abetterway2homeschool.com. I will see you on the other side.